Hello, Robert Toombs. It's time for another recipe. We're closing out the week, and this week was supposed to be restaurant recipes. To keep myself from cooking only sweets, which is my favorite, as y'all well know, I did the fish salmon croquettes at the start. Well, now I'm doing something sweet. I know you can hear like 50s music playing in the background, and no, that's not my music. That is before my time, contrary to a popular belief. But I do like the soda shop, tea house type thing. That's my backup plan, is opening a tea house. But we're gonna do Twila's, with a name like Twila, it's gotta be good. Twila Faye's Tea Room and Soda Fountain Praline Pie. It's like pecan pie, but there is just half a cup of pecans in it. It also incorporates oatmeal. First thing you gotta do, as we listed in the thing, is preheat your oven to 350. Then you've got to find some kind of pan. I'm going to use this pan right here because we're going to toast a half a cup of pecans, and you keep them whole, a half a cup of oatmeal, and I think this is a mixture between regular and quick oats, so it doesn't matter. And then I'm going to mix that in with 2 teaspoons of flour. Alright, so I've got them mixed in got them put in the bowl. I'm going to mix them with a fork because all you're going to do is toss them around. You want to make sure that they get coated with that little bit of flour. And then I'm going to pour them onto this pan, spread them out, because I'm going to toast them in the oven for 10 to 15 minutes. You got to kind of keep an eye on it because they will burn. Okay, so I've poured them on the pan. Now I'm just going to kind of spread them out with the fork. Or you can shake the pan. Then I'm going to stick it in the oven and let them toast. I've taken the oatmeal and pecans out of the oven and I'm letting them cool. And I have to remind myself the pan is hot. I'm bad to grab it. While that's happening, I have melted 1 stick of butter. And I've just melted it in the measuring cup. And I have put together a half a cup of dark brown sugar, half a cup of light brown sugar, and a half a cup of granulated sugar. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is take my 3 different sugars, dump them into a bowl. I'm going to stir it up with my whisk because it's easy to separate it. Again, I'm not going to use a mixer with this recipe.
I like how you're turning the bowl.
Alright, I'm thinking that's relatively decently mixed. Then, I'm going to take my butter and pour it in. That was an egg hitting the floor.
Oh no, everybody has their mishaps in the kitchen.
That's right, such is life. Okay, so next thing we have to do, after cleaning up the
New eggs, by the way,
off of the floor. Yeah, don't tell my girls. We have chickens. We have 2 chickens left. And my husband calls them his girls. They follow him around. So we still use farm fresh eggs. But any eggs will do. Alright, our next step is to rescue these eggs and break them into here before you drop them on the floor. So that's 1. If you notice, I like to reuse bowls and stuff because I don't like to wash a whole lot along the way. And I'm going to beat. If you have one like this, this is cheating way. Either way will work. Alright. I believe that's beaten well enough. Next thing we're going to do is to pour the beaten eggs into the sugars. Okay. Get as much as you can. Okay. Technological whiz that I am, there are several steps that have gotten lost in the netherworld of the internet and the lack of recording. So I poured the eggs into the sugar, stirred it up as hard as concrete. Then I took this scraped my oats and pecans and poured it in. Okay, after adding the oats and the pecans, the last couple of things I'm going to put in is it's 1/8 of a teaspoon, which is your smallest teaspoon, half of that, and a pinch of salt.
1/8 of a teaspoon of baking soda?
Baking powder.
Baking powder.
Baking powder.
Okay.
I'm going to stir this up by hand. And again, just going around and folding it together. You don't have to beat it like you hate it. Just swoosh it around until it's mixed. Sometimes I chop up the pecans and sometimes I leave them whole. The last thing we're going to put in this before we put it in the pie shell is vanilla. Okay, it's 1 teaspoon of vanilla. No, I'm not measuring because I do this enough that I don't have to. Now I got to stir this. Right. Again, I'm just going to swoosh it around. I didn't put the vanilla in with the dry stuff because it might have gotten absorbed up into particular pieces and not distributed evenly. That looks pretty good. I'm going to take the pan that I toasted the oats in and I'm going to brush it off because in case this baby spills over in the oven, I'm not going to have a sticky mess and smoke all in my house from this pie. Okay, I'm going to pour this and it's going to glob out. Clean around the side. Hopefully it will be just the right amount. It doesn't look like it's going to spill over. A lot of times you have a recipe that makes a little too much and you have a mess, but that's going to be just right. Before I put it in the oven, the last thing I'm going to do is kind of drop it a couple of times. Make sure if there's any air pockets that they come out. Shake it to even it up. We're ready to go in the oven. It's going in at the same 350. Okay, I've set the timer on the oven for 30 minutes. It'll take 30 to 35. You want to cook it until it's set, but not dry. Finally, the timer went off. We're ready to test it. Okay, now we're going to test and see if it's set. The way that you test if it's set, okay, if that was not set, my finger would mush down in it. So this is good to go. Only casualty we had was part of the pie crust fell off, and who cares? That's the good stuff. So now we just have to wait for it to cool. Okay, after waiting what seemed like forever for this to cool. It's not really cool enough to cut, but we've just made a fresh pot of coffee and we're cutting it regardless. So if it oozes a little bit, we should have let it cool a little more. The finishing touch is always whipped cream. Now the pieces probably could look better, but again, we could not wait. All right, Twila Phase is not in business anymore. They closed in 2018, but I'm so glad that she was in the Making Cookbook. And when we pulled up her website, the big words were awesome pie, and I knew what they were talking about. Oh man.